Welcome to the Bullish Drive Podcast, where we explore the realms of faith, mental performance, and personal testimonies through conversations with high-level performers. Join us as we extract valuable insights from their experiences to supercharge your pursuit of peak performance. This is the Bullish Drive Podcast. What's up, family? It's James, your mental performance coach, and this is the Bullish Drive Podcast. And if you're brand new, first off, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for just checking it out and seeing what we are all about. Here on the show, we interview professional trainers, athletes, and musicians, and they share their wisdom, testimonies, journeys, and just their own mental skills that they use to navigate the arenas that we are striving to get into. So if you're an aspiring young athlete, aspiring musician, or just someone who wants to take their mental game to the next level, this is the place you want to be, because we are sharing this wisdom for free, because I believe that time and wisdom is your greatest assets, and it's wisdom that we all deserve to have. And so welcome to the show. Thank you. Subscribe and like and follow this video so that you can keep up to date and catch up on all the ones that maybe you have missed if you're brand new. But I'm super stoked to invite you guys on to season 2 finale. We made it through a whole nother season, just incredible conversations that I've been blessed to have with people that are just, boots on the ground in the field, just doing what they love to do and continuing to grow. That's the most important part, being present and enjoying the process. And we talk about leadership and culture quite a bit with my clients, with coaches that I've consulted with. And, the Bible has so many beautiful verses about leadership, but I like to look at 1 Timothy, and they talk about, just not being quarrelsome, being gentle, leading, being willing to teach, knowing how to manage your own family, being teachable themselves, and just leading out of a place of just gratitude, graciousness, compassion. And I think the greatest part about our guest today is that I met him when I just started coaching high school level rugby. And at that point, everybody that I had gone to, except for one person, I'm going to give a shout out. That was Jeff Noe, great guy. He coached the Winona women's rugby team at the time. But most of the people I talked to were like, it's so much work. It's going to burn you out. And it's just something that it was discouraged. But, my bullheadedness, bullish drive, decided, I'm going to do it anyway. Jeff was one of them that reached out. Maybe I'll get him onto the shows, maybe for season 3. But in the beginning, I don't know if it was fulfillment, God's intervention, but I had the chance to meet and shake hands with a guy who introduced himself as Snacks, and he has a great story behind it, but he has such an incredible journey, and he shares some of that story today. His real name is Sean Lindersmith. He is the vice president of Premier Sevens Rugby here in the United States. He has managed and organized some of the biggest rugby games. If you are a rugby fan and you look back at Chicago, when the All Blacks came and played the Eagles, and it was really kind of the big eye-opener for American rugby and American sports in general, just be like, wow, we need to really kick up our rugby game here in America so we can compete with the rest of the world. He was able to organize that, and he's grown incredible relationships. And most importantly today, and I don't want to, just burn a bunch of time, but we were talking about leadership and culture. He is so great at discussing how to grow culture within a community, within an organization, and he shares that wisdom today. And our conversation is an hour long. This is an hour-long finale episode, so I'm super stoked. I won't take up any more time. I'll let the man speak for himself. Sean Lindersmith, aka Snacks, Vice President of Premier Sevens Rugby. Welcome to the Bullish Drive Podcast. And I know I've said a lot, but how about you just reintroduce yourself and tell us what you do here in this incredible sports world. Snacks, welcome to the show.
Vice President of Operations, which is a step up from the director level. After my first season in charge of all the operations, the CEO and the board said that I should be proud of the work I did. And, part of the sort of consequences of doing a good job is a step up in leadership and responsibility and,
Right.
and scope of work, right? So excited to to see that excited and proud that my work was recognized by, you know, the CEO and the board, which is amazing because, you know, really at the end of the day, it was his vision, his dream, and I have the unique opportunity to carry it out. You know, here's your idea and here's how we execute it. And, you know, I'm very proud of last season, but incredibly stoked on what's to come in 2024. I can't say much right now, but when the things come out, you know, if the partnerships, sponsorships, venues land that we're working on currently, it's going to be an exciting time for rugby fans and players and coaches and everything, right? So yeah, it's exciting, mate. And also we moved to San Jose since we last recorded, so I'm now on a new time zone and new climate. Lots of blue sky, no rain or snow coming my way.
Come on, man. Why do you gotta do that? Minnesota's always snowing or raining. It is what it is. It's all good.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't miss it, right? Yeah. Minnesota's now my second home, so you know, it's an important place in my journey.
Man, when you're in Minnesota though, like you have a knack for growing like programs, you know, and the fruit of your work is obviously showing. I mean, with the promotion and everything like that. I mean, I the last time we chatted, you know, I was really interested in culture because that's I feel like that's one of the big things you bring amongst many other things. You are a culture changer. You shift cultures of teams. And so where do you get that from? Like, how do you shift that? Let's start there, man, because that is something that teams are working on for sure.
You know, I think I will politely disagree on a very light level, right? Not in a conflicting way, but rather than saying I'm a culture shifter or changer, maybe I feel like I'm more of a find the strengths in a team and an organization and bring that out, right? Yeah. And then bring people to the table or to that group that will buy into what the team's already doing, kind of thing, right? Like as a head coach, as a VP or manager, director, whatever you want to call it, my job is to find the strengths and get people to perform at their best, you know, and buy into the visions and the values and the standards and behaviors that we put forth in a team. So what I think is important that comes out of that is every team has a culture, every organization, you know, and culture is not written on the wall. It's what you do every day. It's how you treat each other. It's how you walk past the problem. You know, are you the person that looks at the problem and goes, "Oh, not me," or are you the person that says, "Hey, we have a problem. Let's get the team together and talk about it," right? And so, I feel blessed that I've been able to be around a lot of people who have influenced my view on how to enhance culture and bring things out of teams. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to practice those skills, right? And be in teams and be in groups and networks and companies that allow me to say, how can we do this better? Not how can we do this better, but how can we make this the best while we're all here together? Right? While the sun is shining on us, how are we gonna perform here? And what do we want to look when people look back on us? What are they gonna see? What are they gonna feel? What are they gonna hear? Kind of thing, right? And that's for me, that's important, right? Like when you look back at something, the whole like leave the jersey in a better place than you found it kind of thing. You don't own it, you rent it, and rents due every single day, right? Like, and that's important to me, right? Like when someone takes over my role, you know, the CEO and I were talking about life cycles of coaches and managers and stuff the other day. He was like, "Please tell me you're not leaving." No, I'm not leaving, but man, I'm going to retire someday. Yeah. I'm going to, you know, or you train me well enough that a really good opportunity comes up and then me and you go together into the next thing, you know, much like I put the old Aztecs or put Coast Guard Rugby into AMBAC, Coast Guard Rugby and AMBAC into old Aztecs, you know, and then those teams then built on my time at Saints, you know, with UCSD women's, and everywhere I go, like pieces of that culture and those organizations go with me, right? Like I had a boss one time say, when you promote, you wear my name tag and yours, right? We wear each other's name tag. So wherever we go, it's not just Sean Lindersmith. It's, Sean Lindersmith and Jimmy Dreesen, right? Or it's Owen Scannell and Sean Lindersmith, or Mike Tolkien and so-and-so. So it's important to me to make those people proud and carry on legacies, carry on important pieces of the puzzle, work ethic, gratefulness, all the different things that come with it, with a life in sport, a life in sport business.
Yeah.
So long way to say, bring culture out, right? See the good and then elevate that and say, this is why we're here. We belong to this, right? So
yeah, that's good. Yeah. That's good. I like how you corrected the question. It's not that you're shifting it, right? You're just, you're growing it. And I love that. And then you said something about just bringing the people to the table. How do you get people to buy into something new like that? Like, cause that's tough, right? Whether you're a student athlete joining a new team, or you're a parent trying to get your athlete to shift a way of thought or something like that. Like, how do you get the people at the table to buy into that vision and that culture?
That is that's a complicated algorithm.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, it's not a problem. It is, how do I figure out what's best for Jimmy? And first and foremost, that's connection. You have to connect with your people. You have to connect with the organizations, that you're working with, and then you find the selling points for that person, right? Your culture, your company, or your team, your company, your organization, or whatever, has to have enough in it that somebody will find something somewhere of value, right? If you're so tight and you're so small and it's only like we do one thing and this is, we do it really well, like, of course that's great, but you're only going to have like 4 or 5 people doing it, right? But if, you're a multifaceted organization or team and you see, man, that team won, they work really hard, they perform their butts off, then they walk off the field or out of the office and then they're like humble, they're kind, grateful, they're mindful. Like, that's 2 sides of the coin, right? The competitor can sit in this area over here, and then the person who's a team player and loves to think about things and reflective can find this in here. And then at a certain point they meet as friends and they cross each other over and they give each other a little bit of each other, right? Like the Guardians of the Galaxy with the Infinity Stone, right? They all holding hands and it's changing, going back and forth. Like, it's kind of like that, right? Like you find what's important, right? In someone, and then you find what's important, or what drew them to the organization. You enhance that, and then you let them find the other bits and pieces of it, and say, this is a journey. Like, you're not going to be here forever, but what do you want to do while you're here? Yeah. Right. Like, and 9 times out of 10, well, I'll say 8 out of 10 times, most people stay, and most people have a discovery process and figure out what it's about, and a lot of times it's, I don't know what this is, but I like being here. And then they get to define it. They get to own it. They get to leave their legacy. We called it carving our history and our traditions and moments into our walls at Minnesota, right? Like, there were moments where certain people walked through the door that when they walked through the door, the team changed. The destiny, the sort of journey of the team changed, and there were times where we played games where they were terrible, and that changed the course of the team too, right? We kind of alluded to that last time, right? Like, you got to get touch points with everyone. You got to connect with them, find out what's important to them, and then obviously sell that to them, right? And then the other bit is belonging. You belong here, right? You use and how to take it from a statement on the wall to the living and breathing and practicing is your language, your actions, your behaviors. They all got to go in line with what you're doing as a team, as an organization. And and do it, right? Like one of my favorite sayings is, we're better when you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, because we are, like, we can't do this if no one is sitting here either planning a professional sevens league or getting ready to play Iowa State, right? Or setting up a budget. Like, I need all those bits and pieces. You need me as much as I need you. And so making sure everyone knows that they belong, their input matters, their presence is respected and wanted, right? And that's hard sometimes in teams and companies, right? Because you got to have conflict to grow, right? Like, you know, how hard is it to look at your teammate or your coworker and say, yesterday wasn't good enough and I expect more of you.
Yeah.
And they go, what? You know, like in sport, it's easier to say that because that's sort of sports culture. But then you go into the office, you don't know what happens when you say that to someone. So that's why language and communication, connection, and belonging is so important. Because when those moments come down and the chips are down or whatever, you're having a rough day and you say, we're not good enough right now. How do we get better?
Yeah.
We're not happy with this. How do we make this where we want it to go, sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's in a nutshell how I feel like you can get people to buy in, right? Connection, understanding what they want out of it, or helping them find what they want out of it, and letting them work on that piece, and then making them feel like they belong. You know, and I think every single person that I get to buy in becomes part of something bigger than themselves, right?
Yeah.
When I started playing sports, you know, my mom and dad were surprised I wanted to play baseball. They were like, "What? You want to play sports?" Neither of my parents were athletes.
Yeah.
I mean, they played, you know, basketball and PE and you know, my mom would like to dance, but like, who knew that thinking that I could play t-ball would turn into this life of having a huge bag of memories and laughs and experiences and friends that, you know, like you just ring up and be like, yo, bro, you want to be on a podcast? Yeah, sure. You know, like, okay, let's do it. Right. And that's fun, man, to get someone to buy in, and then, you know, you're connected for life. Yeah. You know, you might not speak for a couple of years, but you see him and then you're like, dude, remember? That was awesome. You know, that was such a great day or a great season, or oh, I can't believe that conference was awesome, or, you know, your speech or whatever, right? Like, that's what it is.
Man, that's good. That's good. And I think teams, as they get bigger, you know, whether it's in the corporate world or it's in the sports world, as teams get bigger, we undervalue that connection that you talked about. Right. Yeah. Like when I was working with the Brotherhood Rugby, you know, our first team was 7 athletes. Like, to connect with 7 athletes was super simple. But then, like, by the 4th season, we had like 60 players, you know, and it's like big team organization, but small team mindset, you know. So how to work that into you as just a coach and a leader to make an intentional effort to meet every single player and actually know them. Right. It might take what took a week before might now take like the whole season to sit down and with each one and be like, hey, like, how are you doing? What are you doing? You know, how did you formulate that for like where you're at now? I mean, you're working with big teams now, you know, big organizations. How do you organize that?
Sometimes you make it a point to connect, right? Like, if there's someone you realize you haven't talked to in a few days and you're like, oh, I need to talk to them. Yeah. Right. You just reach out. Hey, how's it going? Saw your engagement photos on Instagram this weekend. Those look cool. How's wedding planning? You know, how was the trip that I saw you go on? Right. My company's all remote. Right. So I'm here in San Jose. Amy and Raquel are in Phoenix. Nicole's in Atlanta. Owen and Mike are in New York. Richie's in San Diego. Catherine's up in Boston. So, like, we're spread out all over the country. And so it is an intentional effort to connect and say, let's sit down, let's talk. You know, how are you doing? And oftentimes, you know, as a boss or as a coworker, when you call someone, they're like, what's wrong?
Right.
You know, and you shouldn't always lead off with work unless it's an emergency, right?
Yeah, that's
like,
good.
hey man, I'm working on this thing. Could you just help me for a second? And preface that so they understand the context of the conversation. But how oftentimes you call someone and you're like, yo, how you doing?
Mhm.
And they're sort of apprehensive, like, where's this going to go? And it's like, no, I just want to see how you're doing.
Yeah.
No, like, because your welfare, your wellness, your mindfulness, or your well-being is important to me in your performance. And, you know, like, I just want to make sure you're doing good, you know? Hold on. I got to give Blue another treat. This guy's like, he's just been housing treats, so he'd be quiet during our interview.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. My dog's asleep by the door, so we're good.
Yeah, no, circling back to that too. The other thing is one, you got to realize you can't communicate with everybody all the time. That's really hard to do. But as you grow, you've got to grow the structures and frameworks beneath you that'll help you. Right? Like at Minnesota, when we went from 16 to 25 to 35 to 45, that came into incremental growth with coaching and managing and social media and the things that came with that. And those folks now become part of the climate check, I'll call it, right? Like I could go to Ryan, who's our social media manager, who has a lot of connections with the entire team, and say, Ryan, what's the vibe? How's things? Is there anybody I need to check in with, right?
That's good.
And then having that support and that structure, one, it gives her an opportunity to connect with the team, and then it gives me an opportunity to connect with her and let her manage essentially like a leadership role without even really understanding it's a leadership role. And then if things are okay, don't do nothing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, cool, carry on. If she were to tell me, hey, I think, you know, you need to check in on Seth. And I'll say, okay, what level do you think? And sometimes I'll be like, you know what, take a stab at it, see how he's doing, and let her build that connection. Or, no, Snacks, I think this is a you conversation, right? And so also understanding when to escalate things, when to keep things at a low level, when to, you know, when to just be a friend or when to be a coach.
Yeah.
Like that's an important skill too to learn, right? Is how to do that. So
yeah,
and that's part of that, getting people to buy in.
Yeah.
You know, and that apprehensiveness of, man, the head coach is calling me. I'm just a freshman. Why is he even talking to me? You know, and it's like, I'm talking to you because you're one of us.
That's right.
You know, we're in this together, bro. Like, I need you, you know, we're brother and sister in this. Like, we got to go. Right. And it's so funny. One of the things that comes up a lot that I kind of chuckle at is after a few years of working with people, they're like, I thought you were full of when I first met you. And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, you like literally like would ask me how I was doing. You would like make sure school was going okay. And I thought you were just like, who is this? And then I found out you talked to the other guys and the coaches, and everyone was like, no, that's how it is, you know?
Yeah.
And then that's how it becomes for them. And then they check in and then it spreads. You know,
right.
It's not as big of a burden per se, right? It's not a burden, but it's a time commitment. But it's not as big when everybody else is doing the same thing you're doing too. Right. So yeah.
Man, that's good. That's good. And that's a muscle though that you've grown and flexed, or was it something you were just is innately a part of who Snacks is?
It is a skill. There's a performance element to coaching and managing or doing work, right? For me, I'm much better. I would much rather be at home creating on Canva or social media or coaching, you know, small groups. And it's the military side of me and also my social awkwardness, which you wouldn't believe given that like you've seen me in meetings, you've seen me coaching, right? Like it's a performance element. Like, I gotta turn it on and say, this is when your people need you. You know, this is what it takes to take care of your group, right? I have an innate sense of taking care of my circle, and then also a very strong, like, just be by yourself and go be a recluse in a cave.
Right.
Make a tiny home, drive around the country, and don't talk to no one, right? Like those two are constantly at odds and pulling at each other. And both of those situations gas me up. You know, when I get coaching, like last week I started with Silicon Valley Rugby, and Neil and Larry were slightly late after the warm-up, and they were like, take it, you got contact. And it was my first session with the team, and I was like, it's been a while, right? But then we started getting into it. We're doing body height changes, we're doing shoulder bumps, we're doing resisted drives, we're doing all these things that the neural pathways start going again, and I'm just like flowing, I'm sweating because it's hot, I had too many clothes on, and dressed from Minnesota, and it was San Jose, and then I walked away and I was like, let's go again. And then yesterday I was like, I don't want to see no one, I don't want to talk to anybody, and I sat at my desk and I created and had some solitude and sort of listened to music, and then I woke up this morning and I was like, let's go, time to coach again. So I don't know, that's a weird like ebb and flow, right? Like people know people know people,
But you know that, right? Like you're aware of that part of you to know when am I going to engage, when am I going to back out, right? It's part of my preparation too. How you're going to go into a social setting with like 30 or 40 people, which all have energy, which all have enthusiasm, which all have had a bad day, right? Maybe they're struggling. So one, you got to pick people up and match that enthusiasm, and then also you're going to see a couple of people you need to make a mental note to check in with later, and give them the ability to say, yo, while you're here, forget about that, you and I will talk about that later, or I'll come see if you're like, if you say you're okay now, all right, cool, but I'll check in later to make sure you're doubly okay. Go hit the bag, go pass that ball, go run a hard sprint, right? Get some stress relief out, and then we can come back to whatever's at the forefront when we're done, and we can deal with that specifically. But this will get you in a better frame of mind to do that kind of thing. And that's not hard, but it's like reading a room is a skill too, right? What I did, and I didn't have it. Like I was the guy in like late teens, early 20s, maybe even early 30s. Snacks was like, yo, what, your dog died? And they would be like, yeah, dude, my dog died today. And I'd be like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like, and it's like, you figure out that's a learned skill. Not everybody is at the level when you walk at your level when you walk into a room. Right. Man, that's good. You talk about, I think delegation is such a big thing, and just being able to trust young leaders to step in so that you can empower. Because when I was working with you, one of my big takeaways is just the empowerment that you allow people. And man, when I implement that into the Brotherhood, and then with all the other ventures I went on to, like it changes just like how people look out for each other, and that's such a big key. And I think when I consult for teams, coaches are afraid to do that. They're afraid to give up power, quote unquote power, right? To their teams. How can a coach grow that, especially a young coach, to build that empowerment within their team? Because at the end of the day, we're not the ones on the pitch, right? We're not the ones on the court. It's the players that are on the court and the pitch. They have to be empowered to make decisions sometimes too.
That is also learned, right? We a lot of people have a very hard time giving up what they think is controllable. So I think young coaches, young managers, people, right? Us as people need to spend some time thinking about what we can and we can't control, right? And there's a lot of, the phrase now in sports and mental skills is control the controllables. Right? We are, it goes back to some goal setting, right? How oftentimes do you talk to a team and they're like, yo, we want to make money, or we want to win?
Right.
And you're like, yeah, that's the outcome.
Yep.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
Right? How do you make money? How do you win the game? And the question, answer to that question is, you've got to do the things that put you in the position to have those outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And which means, you know, what can you control? You can control your preparation.
Yep.
You can control your hydration. You can control your sleep. You can control your boundaries of connecting with folks. Like, know when to be around people and know when you need time for you. Right. If you're always constantly giving and you're not sort of like taking care of yourself, then you're not going to get, you're going to be 50% all the time over here. Right. And zero for yourself. So knowing what you can control is the first part of that process.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing is that, not the first thing. So the first thing is knowing what you can control. The second part of that is knowing if you give up some bits and pieces of the process, of the procedures, of, you know, the how do we get to win? How do we put ourselves in a position to make money? Mm-hmm. When you're giving it up, you're also saying, I'm trusting you to do this. Mm-hmm. And when they go to do that and they follow through, and it's way better than you ever expected. So that feeling's a feeling you should chase as a leader. Mm-hmm. The other bit is, if you've given them something and they fail, that's the perfect opportunity to grow. Yeah. You know, most people are expecting the hiding. They're expecting the butt chewing. They're expecting the man, I let him down. Mm-hmm. And it's like, hey, yeah. But it wasn't because of lack of effort. It wasn't because you didn't try. It was because, and then it also gives you the opportunity to show your process and mm-hmm. say, okay, at this point, would you do it differently? Right. Or would you carry on? Right. And it's a learning opportunity. It's a growth opportunity. And you have to be willing to fail on things to grow and mm-hmm. to get there. Because many coaches that are holding on too tight, many bosses that are holding on too tight, you're stifling your growth, mm-hmm. stifling your outcomes. You don't even know what outcomes you could have because you're rigid. Yep. And your people are going to be rigid. You know, there's a saying, calm is contagious in the military, mm-hmm. right? Well, everything is contagious. Anger is contagious. Patience is contagious. Gratefulness is contagious. You know, like, here's an exercise real quick, right? Mm-hmm. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. And I just want you to think about any random person in your life and wish for them to be happy. Just wish unconditional happiness for them. Nothing else, mate. You just want them to have a good day, right? And if those on video, you're watching Jimmy starting to smile. Mm-hmm. You can't be mad when you want someone else to be happy, right? So mm-hmm. you can open your eyes, bro. I, just wanted you to go to a place with someone. Yeah. If you project the things that you want to catch on and be contagious, they're going to happen. That's right. Right. Prime example, we'll both have kids when they were young, right? Mm-hmm. They fall down and you're like, no. And they're like, what? And they start crying and they're like, oh my God, I should be crying because dad's upset or, whatever's happening. But if you're like, hey, you okay? Get up, dust yourself off. Yeah, okay. And away they go. Yep. Right? And it's like everything. That's what we can control. We can control our reaction. Mm-hmm. Right? You can control your reactions. Yeah. Is it easy to do? No, because we still get angry. Mm-hmm. We still get upset. We still get sad. We still suffer depression or disappointment. Mm-hmm. Or we feel success. We feel happiness. Mm-hmm. We feel contentment, right? We feel relaxation. And the other bit to that is allow yourself to have those emotions. Yeah. And if you're doing things well, or if you've started practicing these things, right? Controlling the controllables and letting people lead and succeed and fail, and then sharing those together, and then mirror or mimic the behaviors and the sort of things you want to see out of your team, right? Mm-hmm. Those contagious effects.
Mm-hmm.
When you're down, they're up, they're going to pull you up.
That's right.
Right? Like they're going to say, hey, they're not like that usually. Hey, what's up? You okay?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, man, I'm not, so-and-so's happened here, or, I'm just working on this thing and it's frustrating me. And then if you've been doing some other things really well and you've created that collaborative effort and those contagious effects, they're going to jump in and help you. No questions asked.
Yeah.
And you can count on both hands and both feet how many coaches won't do that. They just, it's my space. I got this. I got the cones. I got the balls. I got this,
Mm-hmm.
But one time for you coaches that do that, I want you to go pour the balls out on the ground, pour the cones on the ground, and say, hey, let's make up a game. Make up a game. How do we score? How do we defend? How do we turn the ball over? How do we make this more exciting? And let the kids and the other coaches or the players and coaches that are in your group start talking and
Mm-hmm.
watch what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Watch that sort of like collaboration and that contagiousness of enthusiasm and fun and growth. And like, before you know it, you've built something you haven't even thought about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Don't be the blow the whistle every time the ball drops guy.
That's right.
Nothing's perfect, bro.
100%. Nothing's perfect. You can't control that outcome, because there's too many factors. There's just too many factors that get involved with that. Man, I love that.
So we talked about the baby analogy of like your reactions to your child.
Mm-hmm.
All right, think about this. You're coaching rugby, or you're coaching football, or you're coaching any ball sport.
Mm-hmm.
The ball's dropped, it starts bobbling on the ground. You blow the whistle and you get angry. What does that player do?
They're going to feel crappy about it.
They're going to get anxious about dropping the ball.
Yep.
Right? If you flip that and the ball drops and it's bouncing on the ground, and instead of getting mad and blowing the whistle, you say, solve the problem. What are you going to do when this happens?
Yep.
They go, what am I going to do? You know what? I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to pass it, or I'm going to run with it, or I'm going to kick it. And all of a sudden, there's more options.
That's right.
And they're ready to do those because you let yourself feel that and let that happen and let them think through it. And then both of you have critical thinking skills. They have critical thinking. You've taught them a lesson, and you've gained trust that when something goes wrong, they're going to pick themselves back up without you even talking to them.
Right. You gave them permission to be creative too, right?
Yeah.
A lot of players, they think I have to do a coach's way. If I don't do a coach's way, it's the wrong way, right? But you allow them to be creative.
Yeah, 100%.
Man, dude, that's so good. I love that. Last time, earlier you were talking about leaving something that the team can grow off of, right? Like it's not your jersey, it's rented. I think was the words you used, right? And last time we talked, you used a term, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but is Whakapapa a word?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Whakapapa.
Yeah, can you explain that? Because I love the concept of it. I looked it up after we were chatting about it, and could you just describe that and what that means as far as team development and legacies?
Yeah. So Whakapapa is a Maori concept, right? And it's essentially you're a lineage, right? So you have your ancestral lineage, which is, if you think of it in vertical terms, and then along your journey, you have a horizontal like lineage as well, where in the things that you do or the projects you get involved with, teams, companies, whatever, while you're in those teams and while you're in those situations, you're linked arm in arm with the other folks that are in there. And that really good sort of, if you want more about that, Owen Eastwood belonging is where I picked up that philosophy. Also, I had a little bit of knowledge from my time with some of my Kiwi friends and some of the New Zealand teams that I've been able to work with, but Owen puts it in the best way, right, to see it. And what he says is like, what are we going to do while we're linked arm in arm while the sun is shining on us, right? The sun is shining on you is the reference, the analogy of when we're together, like our time together, right? And, you know, if you have exposure to that and you buy into that and you believe in it, which I do wholeheartedly, you can accomplish some amazing things if you get others to buy into that too, right? Because, you know, it's that looking around the room when you're celebrating something, or looking around the room when you're licking your wounds from a loss, right? Like, all those folks are in there too. They're all hurting, or they're all happy, or they're all feeling good, you know? And so making people aware that that's a thing, that like, and it's not necessarily like you're into Whakapapa. It's like, when we're here together, we're doing this together. I need you just as much as you need me, right? And I'm counting on you, and I know you're counting on me. And let's just see what we can do when we put everything together and see what happens. You know, like, and that for me is the fun part, and the sort of thinking, you know, you remember the Adidas quote, "Impossible is nothing," I think is what they said.
Yep.
You know, there were many times this past summer where, you know, I had taken on my new role, and I was responsible for delivering everything with my team for 5 events, which is scaled up from the 3 events the year before and 1 event the year before that, right? So when having done some work and building those connections with the team, and letting go of some things, which I'm even still working on letting some things go, and having a 10,000 foot view level so I can keep moving the ship forward while we execute, kind of thing. Those moments, those little times of failure or successes and growth and everything, like, they came to fruition. And I woke up every day going like, I can't believe I get to do this. I can't believe we pulled that off, you know, like, and then I blinked and 5 events were gone. The fireworks had gone off, and teams had trophies and t-shirts and hats, and, you know, people were talking about the league, and I was just like, I don't even know how we did it, but we did it, you know? And like, the answer is we did it.
That's
good.
We
were all linked arm in arm, and, you know, when it's lightning storm of biblical proportions an hour before kickoff in Minnesota, the team huddles. What are we going to do? Okay, here's the answer. You talk to the stadium, you talk to the teams. Let's readjust the schedule. Let's go here. Let's do this. What's the soonest time we can kick off? All right, you let broadcast know. Boom, 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 boom. And you're kicking off an hour later, and then 500 fans in Minnesota are watching, you know, international rugby players play, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's possible when you start doing a lot of these things, you know, and it's not easy, and it's practice, and you'll probably never master it. You'll fall, you'll stumble, but it's easier to fall and stumble when you know you got, you know, a support or a framework to catch you when you fall. Yeah.
That's good. There's a story that you told me a while ago, just how you organized this massive international event from an iPhone 4.
Yeah.
And man, that just, you can share it.
Yeah, so it's called pulling a snacks in some circles. So I was the assistant manager on the U.S. men's national team in 2015. And we had gone to the World Cup, and we had underperformed, although, like, if you think about it, we kind of performed where we were at, given the personnel and sort of the capabilities we had. Like, it was a good team, great players, but we're not professionals. We weren't professional at the time. You know, MLR didn't exist. PR Sevens wasn't even a thought.
Yep.
You know, and so after that, you know, as results-based businesses are, coaching staff starts saying, hey, we're not coming back. You know, they're not renewing contracts or whatever. And so as an assistant manager, I'm like, yeah, whatever, dude. Like, okay, cool. Like, my time in rugby's been great. I'll just go back to running events with USA Rugby. And we finished in October. And then late December, I was like home, hanging out, and my buddy Nick Tricarico was the men's sevens manager. And he was like, hey man, do you want to go on a tour? And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, the Falcons, the development team is going to go to South America, and we need a manager to do it. And, you know, me and Mike Frido think you could do it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I was like, swan song, baby. This is my time in the sun. I'm done. I'm going to go down to Argentina and Uruguay, just hang out. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I didn't even bring my laptop. So we all fly to Houston. Everybody gets there. Me and Andrew Lockie's the coach. I'm the manager. B- Brian Finn. He's the physio. The three of us are there, and they're like, yo, this is going to be a sweet gig. Two weeks on the road in South America, good food, you know, hotels, sevens, rugby, or whatever. And as we're sitting in our seats, we boarded, I get a text message from Alex Magleby. He's like, we've hired a new coach, and John Mitchell would like you to be the manager of the Eagles. And so at that time in my life, managing the Eagles was my dream job. And I was like, whoa, like that, like really? Like, Max, you're joking. He's like, no. Mitch would like to have you on, you know, the boys respect you or whatever he said. Yeah. I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm watching the door close. And he said, okay. And this was January 4th, right? He goes, okay, you guys are meeting January 28th in, what was the first one? Houston. Houston's the first city. You got to play in the America's Rugby Championships. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, you guys are going to go to, he's like, you're going to go. And he sends me the schedule. And it's like Houston, Fort Lauderdale. Where else did we play that year? Uruguay, Brazil, Uruguay. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. And I was like, how much has been planned? He's like, nothing. Click, the door closes, we start pushing back. And I'm on a broken iPhone 4. And I'm like, wait, what? Nothing? And so we land in Argentina, and I start talking to the high performance manager, Yvonne. And I'm like, hey, has anybody got hotels or anything? She's like, nope. I'm like, oh crap. So she helped me connect with like the hotels and like the unions. And I'm literally like with my phone, just like zooming in on contracts on like really spotty South American Wi-Fi at the time. And like planned a 6-week international tour with an iPhone 4, you know, and, it was a wild ride, man. And I came back and they were like, man, this is like a really good tour. You know, like you had all the details, like we're talking kit and pallets of stuff. And, you know, 7 or 8 person coaching staff, 30 players, you know, media managers and stuff. And like, they're like, oh, you know, you plan this? And I was like, yeah. They're like, oh, it must've been hard in South America. I was like, yeah, especially because I was looking at it on my phone the whole time. And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I didn't even take a laptop. I thought it was like my swan song. I thought I was like going to ride off into the sunset and go play kickball. And they were like, you planned a whole tour on an iPhone 4? And I was like, yeah, I did.
Dang, bro. I can barely plan my kids' conferences on a computer.
Well, I think there's one, I was a Muppet and I should have known better, but well, I did not know I was going to get hired. So let's say that. But I think it set a tone that to embrace technology and be able to be light, be fast, be able to, you know, scan documents, look at them, be able to read them, you know, utilize Google Suite or Microsoft Suite on your phone. You know, for PR Sevens, we could run the whole league on our phone, right? And part of that comes from my time with the Falcons. When I did that, I knew that was possible. I mean, I had to adapt because, like, if not, I was going to be 2 weeks behind, already being like 2 months behind. Right. You know, and I was like, crap. So now, like, when I came on board with PR Sevens, my colleague in Boston, Kelly Cavalier, said, look, you know the World Series, both for the women's and the men's, you know the standards, the expectations. How would you meet standards and expectations with a slightly lower budget, an eye on sustainability, and embracing technology, right? And I was like, that's a good question. I don't know. And so I went away and I thought about it, and it was utilizing Google Suite, utilizing Google Forms, utilizing spreadsheets to track analysis, and being able to provide those off. One of the big things was plastic wrap for the kit. I think Samurai's doing compostable bags now, or some of the kit doesn't even come in bags, so we're not having to be wasteful in that aspect. And then we also, the World Series will print out reams of paper. I mean, we went through 2 things of toner on the first day of the tournament in LA a couple years ago, right? So I didn't want to print. I didn't want to waste that much paper. So we print out, I think it's total 25 sheets for a whole event. And that includes the match officials paperwork. Broadcast gets, the commentators have to have a hand copy, right, on them. And then just a couple documents that we have here and there, right? If there's yellow card paperwork, we go print it out, right? If we need it, right? But yeah, so it's, light, fast, sustainable, innovative, embrace technology, and see what you could do with it. We actually have companies now that, like our spin management platform, it used to be called Divvy, now it's Bill.com. We use it in a manner that no one's ever used it for. And they were like, we went back to them and said, hey, these types of transactions are happening. How do we limit this? And they were like, they shouldn't be able to do that. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, they're doing it. So we need a way to stop it, sort of thing. Yeah.
So just adaptability, right? And willing to adapt.
Yeah. I mean, ostensibly, I think it comes from my time in the Coast Guard, right? Doing more with less. There were times in the Coast Guard where they were like, we're tying the boat to the pier because we have no fuel. If you don't give us money for budget, so for fuel and to go on tour or go on deployment, then we're going to sit here. And so we had to come up with things for our guys to do and everything.
Yeah. Jeez. Well, I love that story. That's such a great story, man.
I think the reason sports and military life before that, what is so interesting to me is it's a conveyor belt of problem solving. With my, I haven't been officially diagnosed, but I think with my tendencies towards ADHD, I need stimulus. I need stimulation. I need to, my mind can go, right? I can get into a flow state and just sit down and hammer down. Like if you let me, you and I'd be on here for 8 hours and we wouldn't talk about the same thing twice. But it's like events do that, and it's, I get to practice all those contagious effects. Last year we were in DC, biblical downpour. We've spent X amount of dollars on pyrotechnics and fireworks for the championship. And the venue's like, we might not let you do it because if you roll the card out, it'll sink into the grass. It's like, oh crap, how do we make this work? And then the guy's like, oh, we didn't have enough pyro. So I was like, enough pyro. Okay. How do we divide it up so it's equal between the women and the men's? And, and you're solving those problems on the fly.
Yeah.
And my team gets to see that I don't run screaming with my hair on fire. I might be like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Right. And then they adopt that. But,
and it goes back to that calmness, right? In psychology, we call it lending your calm, because you're going in chaotic moments all the time. The leader can't have their head cut off. You gotta be calm through it, man. Dude, that's awesome. I love that. I appreciate it. So we're at the end of the hour. Is there any lasting comments you want to give to coaches or parents or just any athlete, when it comes to just culture or adapting and just problem solving? Any lasting comments you have for that? I know it's a lot.
No, that's a big bite of the apple.
Yep.
So in speaking with a lot of coaches and parents and athletes the last couple of years, right, I think something that we need to be mindful of is our time during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic. And there's a lasting social, psychological, and emotional toll or effects we're going to have on us across the next couple of years. I think one thing, we need to socialize more. We need to embrace sport, which will help us build adaptability, will help us learn other behaviors, right? Like, we didn't get to be around other humans for almost 2 years. So you know, those of us that grew up playing with our friends, we found boundaries and limitations by being in social circles and adapting and playing games and skateboarding and doing all the different things you do in a social group. We've got to embrace that and get back to that. I think we've got to embrace play. We've got to embrace socializing. I think we need to help each other out and get through different moments. I believe, and had a good conversation with Phil, my mentor, the other day about this, but we need to get back to building the big foundational pieces of life and of social culture, you know, of, you know, doing the unglamorous things that we need to do on a daily basis to then be able to do the really 1%, the top 1% of the cool things in life, right? And what he said was consistency isn't sexy. I mean, that's right? No one wants to get up on time, do the little things, make your bed, you know, all the videos and the mantras and stuff you see these days. Everybody wants to just take care of that incremental 1%, but you need the other 98, 99% to be in a really good spot so you can start growing 1%.
That's right.
Right? And I would love for us to shift our focus and say, I'm going to go back to working on the 90% because right now it's only at 65. And that means I've got 5% increments that I can grow and see really good results from, you know, both for personal, professional, you know, spiritual, whatever you want to say. Like, you know, not everybody's a high performance athlete.
Right.
We're all normal. We're all just human beings in our own worlds dealing with our own things. And if our house isn't in order and our furniture isn't square, like we're never going to be able to host others.
Yeah.
And we're never going to be able to celebrate or do those things, right? Like, don't let digital content fool you. There's a lot of hard work involved in being an everyday human being, whatever that looks like for you, and embrace that, you know. And not everybody's going to be a professional athlete. Not everybody's going to be a movie star. Not everybody's going to, you know, get to the top of the company. You've got to be good with who you are before what you are first, right? And that's part of that big foundational piece. Work on who you are. Are you a good human? Can others count on you? Are you compassionate? Are you caring, you know? And do those things. And then someday you'll be the expert at something. And then you start building your 1%, right? And that, for me, I'm going to work on consistency, and I'm going to work on doing the things that aren't sexy and the things that you may glance over the first time you look at something, but if you go back and watch it, you're going to go, oh man, if Snacks hadn't put that piece in play, all of these things don't happen. Right. And usually in those consistent blocks, that's hard work. That's learning lessons, that's failure, that's growth between human beings, you know, and that's where I want to be. I'm going to continue to work on being consistent, and I hope others will join me in doing that.
Dude, that's good. And yeah, I just think about the stuff that nobody sees, right? What are you doing when no one's watching, right?
Hold on, the Saracens have it. TSPDS. People don't see.
That's right. That's exactly the idea right there.
You know, if you want to take that to a sport analogy, everybody watches the try get scored. They got it down, they celebrate, they're hugging. You rewind that, you're looking at a guy who held a man or a player for an extra split second. You're looking at somebody who worked hard to get into a good position. You're working at a guy who had to catch the ball under pressure, deadlines looming on him, and he had to move the ball. You know, you look at all those little bits and pieces add up to the result. That's how you get in a position to win. You focus on consistency. You focus on doing the little things well all the time, and those wins stack up, mate. And then all of a sudden, you just looking around from the top of that mountain and going, "Where's the next mountain?"
Right. Man,
you know what I mean?
So good, Snacks. I appreciate you hopping on again. I promise not to lose this file this time.
Anytime, bro. Anytime.
And if not, we'll hop on again. It's all good. We have good conversations every time, bro. But yeah, man, I appreciate you, Snacks. Thank you for coming on the show again and just chatting. This was good.
Yo, tell your missus thank you for letting you do all the things you do. Right? Because you do heaps and heaps of stuff. Would love to see you back in rugby at some point, somewhere.
Yeah.
So if I can help make that happen, let me know,
And I have been itching to get back into the rugby world, so I'm going to have to take you up on that. But guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us and keeping this podcast just growing. I'm just super blessed that people are interested in and wanting to hear from all the people that I've had. Incredible guests on the show for season 2. Season 3 is coming. I am incredibly excited. I have doctors coming on. I have more Olympian athletes. I have American Idol singers coming on, guys. It's going to be a great season. So join us in a few months when we release season 3 of the Bullish Drive podcast. I never thought in a million years that it would go beyond just one season, but it's coming. So thank you guys for joining us for season 2. And if you are an athlete or musician who wants to up their mental game, check us out at www.bullishdrive.com. Set up a free consultation with me. I'd love to just go over, what your visions are, any barriers you're running into, and let's really hammer out a plan to get your mental game to peak performance for this upcoming season. And guys, God bless you. Go get it. Remember, every single day is a choice to be present and in the moment, but it starts with you, and your destiny is waiting. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next season. Peace.